Amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam. Kalo nastyeva, nastyeva, nastyeva gatiranyatha. Bhajahure mana, Srinandanandana, Abhaya Charanara Vindare. Durlabha manava jannama satsange. Taraha e bhava sindhure. Bhajahure mana Srinandanandana Abhaya Charanara Vindare. Durlabha manava janama satsange taraha e bhava sindhure. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, this day, either yesterday, these days here, I don't remember the exact day, but it was sometime April 23rd, April 25th, sometime back in 1974 when Srila Prabhupada initiated me. Actually, the letter that was sent by Prabhupada authorizing was actually April 16th, but the actual initiation was, like I said, sometime. So I am very, very happy to celebrate this anniversary because it means that it means I am under the shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, our founder Acharya A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So, these lines I sang, Bhaja Hure Mana, Sri Nanda Nandana, Abhaya Charanara Vindare, Durlabha Manava Jannama Satsange, Taraha E Bhava Sindhure. Srila Prabhupada recorded this bhajan at least 4 times. I have 4 different recordings of this song. And it is also one of my favorites. Every year, I have to do a lecture on Bhaja Hure Mana. So this year, it's here in the world's greatest temple with the most famous, most beautiful deities, Sri Sri Rukmini Dwarkadish. So this first verse, actually, I could speak for an hour, but no, we're going to take, don't worry. I'm not going to speak for an hour. But this first verse, there's so much in these words. So, the first word, bhaja. Usually, it is translated as worship. But Prabhupada and Prabhupada's spiritual master, Bhakti Siddhanta, they give a much fuller, deeper meaning of this word bhaj. That's the root of the Sanskrit word bhaj, which means to render service. Worship, you can offer worship to superiors, like in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions to worship superiors, and then Prabhupada adds, like the father and mother. Those of you who have grown up in Indian Hindu culture, you learn that right from the start. You must respect the parents. But this word bhaj, to render service, it's a different concept. It implies surrender. It implies, I want to do something to please you. Not necessarily me, but simply to please you. So the author of this song, his name is Govinda Das. He sees himself as a servant of Govinda. So he's addressing his mind. In the Bhagavad Gita, we have some nice verses about the mind. For instance, in chapter 6, Udared atmanatmanang natmanang avasadayet atmaiva hi atmano bandhur atmaiva ripur atmanaha bandhur atmatmanastasya yenatmaivatmana jitaha anatmanastu shatrutve varte tatmaiva shatruvat. Krishna points out in chapter 6, Krishna in Gita, the word Atma. This word Atma has 7 different meanings. And it's interesting. One meaning, the body. That's strange, because generally we define Atma as the soul, the self. That's why you need a spiritual master who can explain appropriately when this word, and in Bhagavad Gita, Atma in chapter 6 is the mind. So, with the help of Srila Prabhupada and the previous acharyas, we get the proper context, because context is everything. So the author is addressing his own mind. And these verses of Bhagavad Gita, what is Krishna telling us? That your mind can be your best friend or your worst enemy. And Krishna says, actually, the goal of yoga is to control the mind, to conquer the mind. According to the Srimad Bhagavatam, the mind has what is called acceptance and rejection. 2 features of the mind. It likes something, it doesn't like it. It accepts something, doesn't accept something. So, the author is pleading with this, and elsewhere in chapter 6, Arjuna describes the mind. Chanchala, flickering. It's anyone who has tried to do the real meditational yoga. It's not so easy in this age of Kali. That's why Lord Chaitanya has made meditation simple, easy. Just chant the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna. Come on. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So the goal of yoga, doesn't matter what yoga, first order of business, get the mind under control. If the mind is controlled, automatically the senses will follow. There is this Vedic description, analogy, that the living entity is sitting on a chariot and it is being pulled by wild horses, signifying the senses, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the skin. So the senses are dragging me away. And what controls wild horses? You have to have reins, and the driver has to pull on the reins so that the horse knows to follow the driver's direction. Otherwise, the horse can go crazy, wild. We have this expression, wild horses. So yes, the senses are like wild horses. So with the reins of the mind, the senses can be controlled. So that's why it is taught. You get the mind under control, automatically everything else will fall into place. The senses will be controlled. Lord Chaitanya begins his 8 instructions, Cheto Darpana Marjanam. Cleanse the mind. Purify the mind. Cleanse it. So, the author of this song is saying, my dear mind, let us cooperate. Don't fight me. Like my wife always says, don't fight me. Do what I tell you. And normally she's right. So the mind, Govinda Das is saying, we should be Sri Nanda Nandana. Let us be fixed. And he says, Abhaya Charana Aravinda. Oh my mind. There is Charana Aravinda, lotus feet. Whose lotus feet? Sri Nanda Nandana. And that can only mean one person. The son of Nanda Maharaj, who is known as Krishna. Yes. Who we worship. Who is in our heart of hearts. Who teaches us, guides us, is helping us. And this word, abhai. Ah, what a great word. Abhai. Govinda Das is telling my mind, please, if we can be fixed at the lotus feet of Krishna, abhai, we will become fearless. Bhai means fear. There are so many different things in this world. So fear is a big item of material existence. Generally, we're fearful. First of all, death is always there. We're fearful. Or if some danger is coming, we become fearful. But Govinda Das is saying, if we simply become fixed at the lotus feet of this Sri Nanda Nandana Krishna, we will become fearless. We will become protected, secure. Prabhupada once wrote to his sannyasi disciple, Kirtan Ras is the safest position in this material world. We just did a half hour of Kirtan Ras. This is a different kind of Kirtan. This is also Kirtan. Because Kirtan means speaking, describing, talking, glorifying Krishna. That's Kirtan. Krishna Kirtan. As Shukadeva Goswami said when he was finishing his instructions to Parikshit for 7 days, 7 nights without stop, Shukadeva was explaining Krishna science. So towards the end, Shukadeva made this statement, that this age of Kali, Kaler Dosha Nide Rajan, my dear king, this age of Kali is a ocean of bad things. You know that. Let's just turn on the TV, put on the news. How long before bad news? 30 seconds. That's the headline. And it always, breaking news means breaking bad news. So, this age of Kali is getting worse and worse and worse and worse. But Shukadeva told Maharaj Parikshit, yes, Kali Yuga is wave after wave after wave of bad things, but asti hi eko mahan guna. There's one good thing. One good thing, kirtanad eva krishnasya. The kirtan of Krishna. And Prabhupada points out, notice he says krishnasya. Shukadev could have used any word, but no. Very specific, krishnasya. The kirtan of Krishna. Prabhupada said we should be known as the Hari Krishnas. Yes, we are. That's our product. Every corporation has their product, whatever they're selling. We are selling the Krishna product. The Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Yes, I've said many times, I am Krishna's salesman. I am here to give Krishna. So, by taking shelter of Krishna, by always remembering Krishna, always glorifying Him, always chanting about Krishna, we become fearless. Kirtanadeva Krishna muktasya, muktasangasya, parang vrajet. My dear King, if you do this Krishna Kirtan, you will go back home, back to Godhead. I was just speaking earlier today with my good friend Ananta Acharya Das, and we were discussing many things. It's nice to know there's somebody on the same page as me in terms of politics. And so we are in this material world and things are getting bad, but if we take shelter of this Hare Krishna movement, we can go back home, back to Godhead. And he was saying, yes, he tells his friends at work, I'm planning on never again taking birth in this material world, because he's had it. And I said, yes, I've had it too. I want this to be the last birth. And who wants to go back home, back to Godhead? Yes, every hand should be up, because it's only going to get worse. Prabhupada even told us, finish up, because it's going to get bad. So we should finish up by seriously taking to this Krishna consciousness movement. The next line, Durlabha Manava Janama. We have this rare human birth, and it is very rare when you think about all the different species of life the soul can acquire. 8,400,000. Only 400,000 species are considered human, and out of those 400,000, small number is civilized human beings who follow religious codes. The number is very small. So, this human birth is a rare opportunity. That's why it says Durlabha, rarely achieved in the cycle of reincarnation. So, as a human being, there must be priorities. He says, Satsange. My priority in life should be the association of devotees. That should be my priority. Seek out nice devotees and associate with them. That's why Prabhupada has an international society for Krishna consciousness. Because on our own, maybe some of us have realized it during the pandemic years. Some of us were on our own, and wasn't so easy, was it? So, international society means come together right now over Prabhupada. That is this international society. Coming together to glorify Krishna, following the instructions of Srila Prabhupada. So Govinda Das says that's my priority in life, getting the association of devotees. Then the last line of this first verse, Taraho e bhava sindhure. Yes, bhava sindhu. This is a nice concept. The ocean of material existence. Maybe you don't know because you don't watch movies, but there was this movie, Titanic. And I remember watching this and I said, oh my God, there is Jack freezing in the water, and his love is on the broken piece of the ship, and he's freezing in the cold water. He dies, she lives. But then there's that one scene, and it shows dozens and dozens of people tossing and turning in the cold Atlantic Ocean. And when I saw that, this is what I thought. Taraha e bhava sindhure. Material existence is just like that freezing Atlantic Ocean. And that, I think, was in the winter, that Titanic. So it was extra cold. So material existence is like an ocean. But this word, toroho, crossover. Some people in that Titanic, they were rescued. They were able to hang on and they were rescued. Rose, the heroine, she got rescued. So, Krishna and the spiritual master are rescuing us from this Bhava Sindhu, this ocean of material existence. And there is a nice shloka in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the Uddhava Gita, which will help give you a nice meditation. So here is this verse. Nirdeham adyang sulabang sudurlabang plavang sukalpang guru karanardharam mayanukulena nabasvate ritang puman bhavabdhing nattarit sa atmaha. So there is some similar words in this Bhagavatam shloka and our verse today. Prabhupada translates this shloka. When one wants to cross a large ocean, one requires a strong boat. It is said that this human form of life is a good boat by which one can cross the ocean of nescience. In the human form of life, one can obtain the guidance of a good navigator. One also gets a favorable wind by the mercy of Krishna. So the human body is the boat. The instructions of Lord Krishna are the favorable winds, and the spiritual master is the navigator. For the spiritual master knows well how to adjust the sails to catch the winds favorably and steer the boat to its destination. One wastes one's human form of life by not taking advantage of this opportunity. And if we waste this human form of life, it is the same as committing suicide. So, this Bhagavatam verse correctly explains this first verse of Govinda Das's song. And this line, Taraha e bhava sindhure, also is there in Bhagavad Gita in chapter 7, where Krishna says, Daivi hi esha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mam eva ye prapadyante mayam etang tarantite. So, in the song, Taraho, and in Sanskrit, Taranti. Same meaning, crossover. So Krishna's verse in 7th chapter, Krishna says, this material energy, which is one of my energies, is duratyaya. very, very difficult to cross over. The example of the Titanic, there's your picture. You cannot, none of us here could go to the Santa Monica Pier and swim to Hawaii. No. Maybe some great demigod could do. And Hanuman, he would just leap. He wouldn't have to bother swimming. So for us to swim across the Pacific Ocean, impossible. So Krishna says, Duratyaya. And sometimes that word is translated insurmountable. But then this line, Mam eva ye prapadyante. Krishna says, if you surrender to me, Mayam etang tarantite. If you simply surrender to me, you can easily cross this ocean of material existence. Easily cross. But you have to take shelter of Krishna. That's why in the famous Bhagavad Gita verse in chapter 18, Mam ekam sharanam vraja. Sharanam, to surrender. But there is another meaning to sharanam. Gujaratis know this word very well. To take shelter. Because that's what surrender means. Husband and wife take shelter of each other to fight the material influences. They work together as a team, right? Husbands and wives, you work as a team. Yes, otherwise you wouldn't stay together. So, yes, you have taken shelter of each other, support each other. You have taken shelter. So, Krishna says, Mamekam, simply take shelter of me exclusively. We see that in the Krishna Leela. If you read carefully the Krishna Leela, time and time and time again, the residents of Braja, anything happens, they turn to Krishna. Indra sent the Samvartaka clouds and the wind and the rain and the hail. The first to surrender were the cows. That's why there is this mantra, Go Brahmana Hitayacha. Prabhupada even says, Krishna's first business, take care of the cows. Go, and then the Brahmanas. Cows come first. So the residents of Vrindavan, any little hint of danger, they take shelter of Krishna. That's the symptom of a resident of Vrindavan. Always taking shelter of Krishna. And that is why Lord Chaitanya says in his Shikshastakam, Kirtaniya Sada Hari. Always take shelter of. Everybody say, Hari. Hari means he takes away all of our misfortune. Krishna is so merciful. So, I'm limiting myself to a half an hour so that you can nicely take prasad. Hari Haraye Namaha. Hari Haraye Namaha. Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Gopala Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudana. Gopala Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudana. Hari Haraye Namaha. Everybody, Hari Haraye Namaha. Hari Haraye Namaha. Haraye Namaha. Hari Haraye Namaha. Hari Haraye Namaha. Okay, one last time together with me. Let's surrender to Krishna with full heart. Together. Hari Haraye Namaha. For those of you interested, I will be here next month, and it will be 2 days after my 72nd birthday, so I'll be in a good mood. So come next month, and let's all take prasadam to our full satisfaction. Hare Krishna.